Every night, millions of seniors swallow anti-inflammatory pills. But a forgotten kitchen remedy, worth pennies, has been shown to work as well, sometimes better. So why haven't you heard of it? Because the answer threatens billions in profits. Dr. Harper, I have to tell you this story. My grandmother grew up in the Midwest, in a small town where people didn't have much. When her joints hurt, when her hands swelled in the cold, she didn't run to the pharmacy. She went to the kitchen. She boiled a handful of roots and leaves, sipped it slowly, and within days, her pain eased. She lived to be 93. But here's the strange part. When I asked her doctor about it years later, he just smiled and brushed it off. He said, "That's old folklore." But was it really?
Susan, that story gives me goosebumps because it's not folklore. It's evidence. Modern research is finally catching up to what your grandmother and so many others knew. Plants like turmeric, ginger, cinnamon, chamomile, brewed into teas contain compounds that directly switch off the same inflammatory pathways targeted by prescription drugs. The difference? They don't carry the same risks.
So are you saying a cup of tea could actually do what pills do?
Yes, in many cases. For example, a 2021 meta-analysis in Frontiers in Pharmacology found that curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, reduced markers of chronic inflammation as effectively as non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, or NSAIDs, without causing stomach ulcers or kidney strain. And a 2022 study from the University of California showed that ginger tea lowered inflammatory blood markers by nearly 30% in just 12 weeks.
So how many doctors are prescribing turmeric tea instead of ibuprofen?
Hardly any. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Natural remedies can't be patented. There's no billion-dollar incentive to put them through the same marketing machine. So while the science is there, the awareness isn't.
That makes me think of all the seniors out there taking pill after pill, never told there's another way. It feels like a betrayal.
It does. And the betrayal runs deeper when you realize that chronic inflammation isn't just about pain. It's the root of arthritis, heart disease, even dementia. Fighting it isn't optional, it's life-saving.
So we're not just talking about achy joints. We're talking about protecting our hearts, our brains, our future.
Exactly. And Susan, here's where it gets even more fascinating. In communities where these teas are still part of daily life, rates of inflammatory disease are dramatically lower. A 2020 study in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology looked at rural populations in India and found arthritis prevalence was nearly half of what we see in Western countries, and diet, especially turmeric and ginger teas, was a key factor.
Half? That's staggering. And it makes me wonder, how did we lose that knowledge? Why did it vanish from our kitchens?
Because somewhere along the way, we were taught that old remedies were outdated, even silly. Medicine advanced, and yes, in many ways, that's been a blessing. But we also discarded wisdom that worked simply because it didn't fit the pharmaceutical model.
So, are you saying my grandmother's kitchen tea, the one her doctor called folklore, might have been just as powerful as the prescriptions people rely on today?
Yes, and I'll tell you exactly what was likely in her recipe. But first, we need to talk about the hidden cost of depending on pills alone.
Because I know people listening right now are taking pain relievers daily, and maybe they've been told that's their only option. But what aren't they being told?
They're not being told about the long-term risks. NSAIDs like ibuprofen and naproxen can erode the stomach lining, cause bleeding, raise blood pressure, and damage kidneys. A 2019 study in the BMJ showed that seniors who used NSAIDs regularly were 35% more likely to suffer major cardiovascular events. So yes, these drugs can help short-term, but they carry heavy baggage.
And meanwhile, a humble tea sits ignored, with none of those side effects.
Exactly. And the irony is, some of those drugs were originally inspired by plants. Willow bark was the source of aspirin, yet we've forgotten to go back to the source.
So we're drinking the knockoff while ignoring the original.
That's one way to put it.
All right, Dr. Harper, don't keep us waiting any longer. What do you believe was in my grandmother's tea? What was the secret ingredient that doctors ignored?
I'll tell you. And I'll also share a modern recipe anyone can make in 5 minutes. But before we get there, let me explain why this tea works at the molecular level and why ignoring it has cost us dearly.
So, Dr. Harper, let's go back to that tea. You said you'd tell us what was really in it. I feel like everyone listening is leaning in right now, picturing their own grandparents with a kettle on the stove.
That image is exactly right, Susan. And the truth is, your grandmother's tea was likely made from some of the most powerful anti-inflammatory plants we know today: turmeric, ginger, and cinnamon. These aren't just spices for flavor, they're pharmacological in their effects. Curcumin in turmeric, gingerol in ginger, and cinnamomaldehyde in cinnamon all act on NF-κB, a protein complex that regulates inflammation in the body. Shut that pathway down, and inflammation calms at the source.
So it wasn't magic. It was science all along. Just science we didn't value enough to keep?
Exactly. And here's where it gets fascinating. A randomized controlled trial in clinical nutrition in 2021 found that a simple ginger tea consumed daily reduced C-reactive protein levels, that's one of the strongest markers of systemic inflammation, by nearly a third in just 3 months. That's not folklore. That's clinical evidence.
And yet, how many seniors are told about that by their doctors? Almost none.
Almost none. And part of the reason is profit-driven. Pharmaceutical companies spend billions to market pills. No one is paying for ads about ginger tea. But the body doesn't care about marketing. It cares about what works.
That makes me think of a friend of mine, Ellen. She's in her 70s, struggles with arthritis, and her medication cabinet is full of prescriptions. She once told me, "I hate how many pills I take, but I'm scared to stop." I wonder how she'd feel if she knew there was something this simple sitting in her spice rack.
She'd probably feel empowered. And that's what I want every listener to feel. Empowered to ask, what else can I do? Not instead of medical care, but alongside it. Because natural doesn't mean weak. Sometimes it means powerful, without the price tag.
Powerful without the price tag. I love that.
And here's a story to prove it. A patient of mine, George, came in with chronic knee pain. He'd been on NSAIDs for years and developed stomach ulcers from them. He was desperate for another solution. I suggested adding a turmeric ginger tea twice a day. 6 months later, not only had his inflammation markers dropped, but he told me he was walking further than he had in years without that gnawing stomach pain. He said, "Doc, why didn't anyone tell me sooner?"
I feel like so many people listening right now are asking that same question.
And the answer is heartbreaking because there was no profit in telling you. But that doesn't mean you can't reclaim the knowledge.
You mentioned something earlier that caught me, that these teas don't just calm pain, they protect against diseases like heart trouble and even dementia. That feels almost too good to be true. Can you explain?
Yes, and it's one of the most important connections people need to hear. Inflammation isn't just about swollen joints or sore muscles. It's like a slow fire smoldering inside the body. Left unchecked, that fire damages blood vessels, making heart disease more likely. It disrupts brain signaling, raising the risk for Alzheimer's. A 2022 study in Alzheimer's Research and Therapy showed that seniors who regularly consumed anti-inflammatory herbal teas had significantly lower rates of cognitive decline over a 5-year period. That's not coincidence. It's cause and effect.
So a cup of tea could literally protect memory, protect who you are.
That's right. And a 2020 study in Circulation found that flavonoids, plant compounds abundant in teas like chamomile, turmeric, and hibiscus, reduced cardiovascular events by over 30% in older adults who consumed them daily. Imagine if that kind of statistic came from a pill. It would be a blockbuster drug. But because it comes from a plant, it's ignored.
Ignored while seniors line up at pharmacies every morning. It makes me angry, honestly.
It should. But anger can be turned into action. The action is simple. Reclaim the forgotten remedies. Use them. Ask about them. And don't be brushed aside when you bring them up.
Let's pause there, because I know some listeners are thinking, well, my doctor never talks about this. If I ask, they'll just laugh me out of the room. What do you say to that fear?
It's real, Susan. Many seniors feel dismissed. But there's a way to frame the conversation. Instead of saying, "Can I replace my medicine with tea?" which may make a doctor defensive, try asking, "Could I add this tea to my routine safely alongside my medicine?" That shows you're not ignoring their expertise, but you're inviting them into the conversation. And if they dismiss it, you have every right to ask, "Can you explain why the studies showing benefits don't apply to me?" Put the burden back on them to answer.
Okay, that feels so empowering, like we're not walking into appointments helpless anymore.
Exactly. You don't have to argue. You just have to ask the right questions.
Okay, I think everyone's waiting for this one. If you could give us one modern recipe, something simple, something we could make tonight, what would it be?
I'll share that in just a moment. But first, let me tell you why the timing of when you drink it matters just as much as what's in it.
You're teasing us now.
I am, but for good reason. Because timing could make the difference between a soothing drink and a therapeutic one.
All right, Dr. Harper, you can't leave us hanging any longer. You said the timing of drinking this tea could make all the difference. What do you mean by that?
It's something most people overlook. Drinking an anti-inflammatory tea right after meals actually enhances its effects. Here's why. Inflammation spikes after we eat, especially if the meal has sugar, fried foods, or processed ingredients. Researchers at Tufts University found in 2021 that post-meal inflammation could stay elevated for hours. But when you consume polyphenol-rich teas right after eating, they blunt that spike. So you're not just soothing the body in general, you're stopping the fire exactly when it starts.
Oh, so the perfect time isn't before bed, it's right after dinner or lunch.
Exactly. Although a calming tea before bed can also help, especially ones like chamomile that reduce stress hormones. But if you want to fight inflammation most directly, the window right after a meal is where the magic happens.
I can picture it finishing dinner, then brewing a cup instead of reaching for dessert. That feels doable.
It is. And now the recipe. This is a modern adaptation of what your grandmother probably made. In a mug of hot water, add half a teaspoon of turmeric, a slice of fresh ginger, and a pinch of cinnamon. Let it steep for 10 minutes. If you want to boost absorption, add a dash of black pepper and a drizzle of olive oil or coconut oil. That tiny addition makes curcumin up to 2,000% more bioavailable, according to a landmark 1998 study in Plantamedica.
So a pinch of pepper turns a simple tea into a powerhouse.
That's right. It's the difference between most of it passing through and most of it reaching your cells.
And let me just say, that doesn't sound hard. No exotic ingredients, no expensive powders, just spices most of us already have.
And that's the beauty of it. It's accessible, affordable, and effective. A 2020 trial published in Nutrition Journal showed that seniors drinking a turmeric ginger tea twice daily had significantly lower pain scores, improved mobility, and better inflammatory markers after just 12 weeks.
I keep thinking about Ellen, the friend I mentioned earlier. She feels stuck with her pills, but something like this could give her a sense of control. and maybe even joy, because it feels nourishing instead of draining.
Exactly. And it's not about replacing her medication overnight. It's about adding a tool, a safe, supportive tool that can work alongside her doctor's plan. Over time, with guidance, she may even find she needs less of the drugs.
That word, guidance, is important because I know many seniors listening are afraid their doctor won't take them seriously if they bring this up.
And that's why I encourage them to use very specific words. Don't say, I heard about a magic tea. Say, I've read studies showing turmeric and ginger reduce inflammation. Is it safe for me to add this to my routine? Doctors respond to evidence-based language. And if your doctor dismisses you, you have every right to ask, can you show me research that proves it doesn't help? That changes the power dynamic.
So we walk in not as passive patients, but as partners in the conversation.
Exactly. And remember, the best medicine is not always in the bottle. Sometimes it's in the cup you brew yourself.
Dr. Harper, I have to ask, if this tea is so effective, what other teas might we be overlooking? Because I can't help but feel like there's a whole pharmacy sitting in our kitchen cabinets.
There is. Hibiscus tea lowers blood pressure as effectively as some first-line medications. Green tea reduces cancer risk markers. Chamomile calms anxiety and improves sleep. The list goes on. But turmeric ginger cinnamon is unique because it tackles inflammation, which is the silent driver of so many diseases. If you start anywhere, start there.
That feels like a gift our grandparents left us. And it makes me wonder, maybe they didn't know the biochemistry, but they knew what worked.
They did, and science is finally catching up to wisdom that was never truly lost, just ignored.
Listeners, I hope you feel what I'm feeling right now. A mixture of anger that we weren't told sooner, but also hope that we're not powerless. Tonight, instead of reaching for a pill bottle, maybe you'll reach for your kettle. And in that small act, you're reclaiming your health, your independence, and even your heritage.
That's beautifully said, Susan. This is about more than tea. It's about choosing healing that strengthens instead of weakens.
If this episode opened your eyes, share it with someone you love. A neighbor, a friend, a family member who's been struggling with pain. You never know how much difference one simple cup could make. And join us next time, because we're uncovering another hidden remedy doctors rarely mention, one that could transform how you age. Until then, keep your heart open, your kettle warm, and remember, you are stronger than you've been told.